Hello. I just wanted to go over this manual for unlicensed showing assistants and talk through it. Um, uh, a lot of questions that are asked can be answered if you can put a link on your smartphone to forrantohio.com, and also this doc right here if you download the Google Docs app for your iPhone or Android or even Windows Phone. I think there's a Google Docs app or a link. Then you should be able to answer any questions you have about a lot of the things people ask about a property. However, I've tried to answer as many as I can. Feel free to email me, Andy at rtserve.com, with more questions, or give me a call, 216-324-6637. The biggest danger when you're showing is fair housing violations. Please understand, it's not as simple and clear cut as you think, especially in rentals, because there are actual testers. It's like the wild, wild west with fair housing. Because it's so expensive for the government to send people out, instead of actually sending people out, they privatized it, and it's like the privateers of the old times, where basically the private individuals that come out, they get to collect whatever bounty they get by causing you to screw up. So if they cause you to act like you're being discriminatory, even if you're plain old not, and then usually that's the case, um, then it's an automatic fine of 5 grand. So these people are collecting 5 grand, collecting money hand over fist. You don't want to be a victim because they're very tricky. Okay, so number one, don't steer. Steering is when you have any people group. It's not just race, but it could be color, religion, sex, family status. Um, there's all the disability. Like for instance, you wouldn't say you don't want someone if a house is right next to a church, and you understand someone to be religious. In fact, even if you don't know if they're religious, you don't say, "Hey, it's right next to a church." You don't even talk about that, because that could be construed as you steering somebody towards a certain religion or a certain class, and that's the same as a racial prejudice or racial hatred. Um, so um, so you just have to be really careful about anything to do. As soon as there's anything related to any of these 7 things: race, color, religion, sex, family status, or disability, you just got to be totally on your guard. Anybody asks you a question about it, anybody says anything about it. Um, it is, like I said, it is not. It is in fact best not to even mention features of property that could correspond to a protected group. Um, you would never say, "Oh, there's a lot of X people here." That's basically understood, but it's just important to go over this for compliance reasons. Um, in general, the general rule of thumb is treat everyone the same to avoid worries and prejudice. It, and by the same, it doesn't mean better or worse. It really means the same, because you can treat people differently and not treat them worse, and so you justify it. But in reality, look to approach everyone the same way, say the same things to everybody, and keep it all the same. And that's the way you keep out of trouble. Um, Regarding disabilities, we always make reasonable accommodations for those suffering with disabilities. If people need more details on what exactly those are and what exactly we'll do, refer them to the office if they need special help. For instance, a deaf person may need a special smoke detector that is visual, because they can't hear it. And they don't want to die in a fire because they couldn't hear a smoke detector. So we would do that, But for other things, ramps and things like that, we would have to check sometimes with an attorney to see what we're required to do or what the owner's willing to do, things like that. Don't just speak out unless you're really, really sure what we will do. Just let people know that we will always make reasonable accommodations for those suffering with disabilities. Are pets allowed? This is a big one. And a lot of times, and it is one that'll come up when you're showing a property. Um, there is always an additional $25 charge per month per pet. This does not include service animals. We do not charge or limit for any service or medically required animal. This is important. We do not charge or limit for any service, animal, or medically required animal. Make sure you know this. I repeated it twice for a reason. $5,000 for not knowing that right there. Okay? So looks like I misspelled something here. Um, also, we don't. We aren't allowed to accept pit bulls, Doberman Pinschers, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Chows, or Akitas, because those will make our insurance cancel. What appliances are, and if somehow they find a service animal of those 7 times, make sure you contact us. I don't know how we'll handle that one. Um, we'd have to check with our attorney on that. What appliances are included? Sometimes a house will have appliances, and so it's generally expected, unless you know otherwise, that the house has appliances and they're included. Now, sometimes they're there and they don't work, whatnot, but generally if they're there, they're included. Um, but if you want to know what's going to be included, because some houses, the owners agreed to do certain things, check the Google Docs spreadsheet here, which hopefully is in your phone. It's a list of all properties and has a bunch of items on them. What floors or bedrooms are the bathrooms at? This is more of an question that comes up on the phone. So if you're showing the property, maybe that won't come up. But if you haven't been to the property, you can reference videos and pictures for that information. Is there a garage? Again, that's probably not something you'll come up with. It'll be pretty obvious. What utilities are paid? This is a big question, very common. Single-family homes always have tenants responsible for all utilities. For multifamily properties, you would refer to the sheet because that can differ. Sometimes the utilities are split and everything goes to the tenant. Sometimes there's a flat fee for utilities. There can be all sorts of arrangements. But for single-family properties, it's always the tenant responsible for everything. What about does the owner plow or do landscaping? On 1 to 3 unit complexes, tenants are always responsible. Now, with the 2 and 3 unit complexes or properties, um, it varies. I believe the lease states that like the lowest unit or the one to the left or something like that, one closest to the driveway mows, and then everybody's on their own for digging themselves out of the snow. Um, so, um, that kind of varies how that works out. But with the one family, it's always a given. You do your own landscape and you do your plow. You do your own. You digging yourself out of snow, and that's the way it is. How's the neighborhood? Ooh, that's a real tricky question, and it kind of relates up to fair housing here. Just gotta kind of dance around that one. We always tell people we can't answer that. However, or I can't answer that. However, your best bet is to drive by at several times a day and week to experience it for yourself. Um, as soon as you start making a judgment about an area, it's suddenly not only are you really not qualified because only the person themselves really knows what their qualifications are for an area. So that's one pit you fall into. The other is that you just start coming real close to steering and fair housing type things where you start talking about a neighborhood and crime, and then well, what if that neighborhood's towards one race, gender, religion, or whatever, and suddenly you're making a statement that you shouldn't have made. So just tell people to check it out for themselves. Be general. Who lives next? Okay. What part of the street is the unit located on? This is one of those ones you'll know if you're there, so don't worry about it. This will be obvious. That's more a question that people who are our leasing coordinator will be answering. Who lives next door? Some people ask about the neighbors. Again, just don't talk about the neighbors. Um, it's similar to if you want to know about the neighborhood. Encourage them to explore the neighborhood. They want to knock on the neighbor's door. God bless them. But um, you know, pretty much defer on any comments about the neighbors, because maybe you think they're great, but then the tenant decides that they're not after they move in, and just don't talk about it, and we won't have any problems. Except to tell them to check them out themselves. Has there been any drug activity in this home? This is another question. Very well. In specifics to this house, um, I would just say you have no knowledge of it because you probably don't, unless you have specific knowledge, which then you can share it. And generally, if it's vacant, then it's not an issue. So I suppose the only question would be if there was a meth lab, which I hope not. That would be pretty dangerous. We would never knowingly rent out a meth lab. So, um, what is the heating system? What kind of heat is there? Usually, the type of heat is very clear once you get in the home. You can go downstairs, and a four-stair furnace looks totally different than a little itty-bitty boiler, because boilers look smaller because they don't have to force the air through a big wide area. They're just putting a little bit of water through pipes. So you'll notice the difference. If you're not an expert on this, you'll notice a difference just based on size. Um, Also, whether it's gas or electric, you'll see a giant 220 line come into the to a electric furnace to heat the whole house. If it's gas, it'll only be a small electrical line, and you'll see a black gas pipe coming into the furnace. Um, so, another similar question is there central air? Normally, you can see the AC unit on the outside, and you'll see a little you'll see like a pipe from the AC coming in to the furnace. Um, Generally, if there's the AC unit there and it looks like it's working, they're going to have AC. Sometimes this is talked about in the description. If it says they're AC, there's going to be AC. So you can check out forrentohio.com. That gives you the actual marketing descriptions. Um, who takes care of the maintenance? Uh, People are wanting to know, is this going to be a properly maintained home? And that's understandable. Except in special cases, all maintenance is handled by our in-house team of 12 full-time maintenance workers. Tenants can submit workers online or call our office to submit them. Who is the landlord? That's another question. People want to be nosy. Um, Realty Trust Services is the agent for the owner. Realty Trust Services, as agent, will be your landlord and professionally manage this property. The owner does not wish to be contacted or identified. Um, the reason they have an agent is because they don't want to deal with it. So we let the people know that we're handling it, basically. Um, and so it's good to kind of familiarize yourself with all these answers. Is there any bugs? Normally, if you have no knowledge, you would say, I have no knowledge of bug infestations, unless you do. If you do have knowledge of bug infestations, then make sure you tell them what you know. Hopefully, if you have knowledge of the infestation, you also have a little bit of knowledge of what's been done, because they're going to want to know, has it been treated? And so are there going to be any fixes done to the home? This is a difficult one because we're actually leasing a lot of pre-finished houses, and it just naturally leads to miscommunication. So people want to know what's going to be done, and then sometimes they move in and what they thought was going to be done wasn't done. So here's the general rule. There are properties that are shown before they're finished. Unless the owner is specifically advertising a property as elbow grease special, which is like a special that we run where it's less down payment or less option, less deposit, in exchange for them maybe doing a little cleaning, painting, something like that, then the property will be fixed. However, landlords and owners sometimes have different expectations about what will be fixed. It's important that you agree on any expected fixes before signing a lease. This is just understood. So make sure that people understand, if yes, the following's going to be done, but, sometimes there's little things that they thought that would be done that weren't done. So make sure that if there's specific things that need to be done, either before or even after move-in, that they understand that they need to make sure that's in writing. Next, these next few are about applications. Regarding applications, I'm going to put a little section here about filling in applications. If someone wants to apply, there's two ways to apply. Number one, they can go to forrentohio.com. There's a kind of a larger center section where all the list of properties is. And they pick the property that they're applying for. Once they click on that property, they will see the single property page that has the video, pictures, a description, price, and all that. On that page is a button called application. You click that application, then that's the way you apply for that property on the web. Alternatively, you can actually, you should probably have a stack of applications with you. Let people fill out applications, and you collect $25 per applicant. So those are the two ways to fill out an application. You really should, a big part of the value you bring as a leasing agent is the ability is like what percentage of people that you show actually fill out applications. Because by opening it up and presenting a good, yourself well, people will trust us as a company and then fill out an application. We're looking to see as many applications as possible. Make sure you work to make it as easy as possible to get those applications for the tenant. Some people ask about applications, because it's $25, so they don't want to pay the money and then be turned down. One question we hear a lot is, I don't have great credit. How do you screen? What do you do? What's your process? And you really should have this down, because this is a question that you're going to get over and over and over again. You're going to have to be able to answer it in order to ease people's minds about applying. We want to get as many applications as we can, so we have a choice. What we tell people is we screen using credit. Actually, I need to rewrite this. We don't just screen on credit alone. Pardon me. But also look at criminal background and eviction checks, as well as income, job history, and landlord references. We will often approve many people with bad credit who otherwise have paid their rent, although final decision is up to each owner. If interested, please apply. We look for ways to approve tenants. Many tenants who don't think they qualify do. We charge $25 per person over the age of 18, which covers our cost for doing the background check. If you really understand that language, and I think I might have repeated myself a couple times in that, but if you really understand this section, this would be good to know. So, right there. You also get a lot of questions. I have a felony, will you consider me? Normally a felony is an automatic rejection. We do not ever rent to convicted sexual predators. However, if you are truthful on your application regarding your past, and you've had a clean history for 10 years, some criminal backgrounds we will overlook. I am a registered sex offender. Can I be a tenant? No exceptions. I'm sorry. We don't do sex offenders. It is just it's too much risk. We don't want to move a sex offender in and then have somebody else knowingly move a sex offender in and then have somebody get violated or preyed upon and then be responsible for that. So we will never consider any sexual offender, no matter the statute of limitations or how long it's been. All right, that's pretty much it. Make sure you email me any further questions, Andy@rtserve.com, or call me 216-324-6637. Bye.